Namo Mr. Paraya Krishna Prishtaya Putale Bhakti Vinanda Swami Pracharane Nirvishesha Shvanivadi Pashtarthi Tekshatarne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Vishvasadi Auram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hi, so welcome to this Nectar of Devotional sessions. Today, hopefully, would be the last session of our discussion on this. Okay, so it's it's a sad matter, but we have to come to a conclusion. And I hope that we continue reading the other chapters also in the same manner. We will see how it goes. Okay. So till now, in our discussions on Nectar of Devotion, we have been discussing the Eastern Division for all these 3 weeks. And within that, there are 4 waves. We discussed the first wave, Samanya Bhakti. We spent some considerable time there to understand the definition of Bhakti, the subject matter of this book, and the divisions of this book. Then the definitions of Bhakti, the 3 types of Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, Raganuga Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, and Prema Bhakti. And after that, we discussed about the divisions within Sadhana Bhakti, that's Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, Raganuga Bhakti. And within Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, we discussed the limbs of devotional service, the 64 limbs of devotional service. And within Raganuga Bhakti, Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, we discussed the different aspects of, initially we defined what is Ragatmika Bhakti, and then the one who follows in the footsteps of these Ragatmika devotees are called as Raganuga Bhaktas. We saw the eligibility for these Raganuga Bhaktas, and we also saw the divisions within that and the limbs that are being followed for a Raganuga Sadhana Bhakta. Yesterday we discussed about Bhava Bhakti, which is the 3rd wave in Eastern Division. And just a quick recap of what we discussed. Yes, so we defined what is Bhava Bhakti, and specifically we took the commentaries of Acharyas and elaborated on the word Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma, how it manifests the Lord's potency of Samvit and Ladini, and it manifests within the heart of a devotee who has come to the stage of Bhava Bhakti. Then we discussed about the causes of Bhava Bhakti. It can arise from either Sadhana Bhakti or by the causeless mercy. Through Sadhana Bhakti, it can come from Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So Bhava can arise from Vaidhi Sadhana also. This is one specific point which we discussed, that all the 64 limbs of devotional service can lead one to the highest stage of love of Godhead. Okay, and Raganuga Sadhana is specifically when one wants to enter into Goloka Vrindavan, into Krishna Loka. Okay, so that is Sarganuga Sadhana. Then we spoke about the Bhava Bhakti arising from mercy of the Lord. So we saw a few references. Mercy by Krishna. Mercy of Krishna can invoke Bhava or ecstatic emotions within a devotee. So that can happen either by the Lord speaking, or a devotee taking a glance of Krishna, or Krishna glancing at a devotee, and by the good wishes of Krishna. And we saw references for each of these. Then finally we discussed about Bhava Bhakti arising from the mercy of a devotee, and we saw the example of Narad Muni giving his mercy to Prahlad Maharaj, and Narad Muni also giving his mercy to a hunter. So we completed chapter 17 on this note. And in chapter 18, we discussed about the characteristics of one who is in ecstatic love, one who is in Bhava, which is typically called as Anubhava. And we also discussed that these characteristics are something which we endeavor for even when we are in the stage of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. But we have to push ourselves to basically do those, to follow these things, or to exhibit those characteristics. But Anubhavas are those which are automatically manifest within the personality of a devotee who is on the stage of Bhava. Today, we are supposed to discuss, or we will be discussing, this Ratyabhas, which is two. One is Pratibhimba and Chaya. So, Srila Rupa Goswami, he gives specific definitions for Pratibhimba and Chaya, but in his summary that Srila Prabhupada gives, he combines these two and just speaks about imitative Rati, or a resemblance of Bhava or Rati. So, we'll follow Srila Prabhupada's footsteps and we'll discuss in that manner. Then finally, the destruction of Bhavabhas and Bhava. So even this reflection of Bhava or the semblance of Bhava, it can progress to the stage of actual Rati or real Bhava. That is possible by the mercy of a devotee in association of pure devotees. So that we will discuss. And by offending a devotee, a person on the stage of Bhava or who is on the stage of Bhavabhas, he will fall down. And we'll see which stage he falls down to. There are different levels. And apparent faults in Bhava Bhakti means that even if we see some faults in a devotee who is on the stage of ecstatic love, still that should be understood as not as a fault. It should not be considered as a fault. And Srila Prabhupada will specifically quote this verse, Api chet suduracharo bhajate mamananyabhak sadhureva samantavya. So even if there is some fault apparently because he's engaged in unalloyed devotional service, bhajate mam ananya bhag, without any other desire, therefore he must be considered as a devotee only, as a devotee, pure devotee on the highest level. So we have discussed all this and we are supposed to discuss, let's move on. Imitation of Krishna's pastimes. Right. And just a precursor, we also saw that for a person whose heart is contaminated with action reactions of fruitive activities or in mental speculation, within their hearts, bhava will never appear. Okay. So if they are performing devotional service, it will be within the stage of Vaidhi Bhakti only. They will not progress to the stage of bhava or prema. So one must come out of the entanglement of fruitive activities and stop his mental speculation. Srila Prabhupada writes, there are many so-called devotees who artificially think of Krishna's pastimes known as Ashtakaliya Leela. Okay, Ashtakaliya Leela means the pastimes of Krishna with the gopis, specifically Srimati Radhan, or the pastimes of Krishna throughout his 24 hours is divided into 8 different divisions, you can say. Okay, so from this time to this time, there is specific pastime that Krishna performs. And one who is on the highest level of Raganuga Sadhana or Bhava Bhakti or Prema Bhakti, they spontaneously meditate on these pastimes of Ashtakali Leela. But there are so-called artificial devotees or so-called devotees who artificially think of Krishna's pastimes, which means these pastimes are not spontaneously manifest within their heart. Okay, it's artificial, it's imposed, it's forced. Love cannot be forced. So, Raganuga Sadhana, Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti, these things cannot be forced in the heart of a devotee. When the mirror of the heart is clean, then automatically they manifest. So, Ashtakali Leela, Smaran or meditation on Ashtakali Leela is an authorized process, but only for those who are qualified. Those who are not qualified, who are artificially trying to think of this Ashtakali Leela, they are not to be considered as devotees on the level of Rati, on the level of Bhava. So sometimes one may artificially imitate these, pretending that Krishna is talking with him in the form of a boy, or else one may pretend that Radharani and Krishna both have come to him and are talking with him, okay, as if he's very qualified. Such characteristics are sometimes exhibited by the impersonalist class of men, and they may captivate some innocent persons who have no knowledge of the science of devotional service. However, as soon as an experienced devotee sees all of these caricatures, means imitations, he can immediately evaluate such rascaldom. If such a pretender is sometimes seen possessing imitative attachment to Krishna, that will not be accepted as real attachment. It may be said, however, that such attachment gives the pretender hope that he may eventually rise onto the actual platform of pure devotional service. So it may be said that such attachment, even though it's imitative, it can lead one, or it may eventually rise to the actual platform of pure devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada will explain that it is possible only in association of pure devotees. It is not possible otherwise. It's possible only in association of pure devotees. So this imitative attachment can be divided into two headings, namely shadow attachment and para, transcendental attachment. If someone without undergoing the regulative principles of devotional service or without being guided by a bona fide spiritual master shows such imitative attachment, this is called shadow attachment. Okay, so it is shadow because he is not following regulative principles. Vaidhi Bhakti is not being done and is not being guided by a bona fide spiritual master, either on the Vaidhi Bhakti stage or Raganuga stage. So therefore, whatever attachment he is showing to Radha and Krishna is his own imagination. It's imitative. Okay, it's imitative. So that's called as shadow attachment. Sometimes it is found that a person actually attached to material enjoyment or salvation has the good fortune to associate with pure devotees while they are engaged in chanting the holy name of the Lord. By the good grace of the Lord, one may also cooperate and join in the chanting. At that time, simply by association of such pure devotees, the moon-like rays from their hearts reflect on him. So, in coming with association of these devotees, his heart becomes purified because he is hearing and chanting along with pure devotees, and his heart then reflects the same attachment that the pure devotee has for the Lord. And by influence of pure devotees, he may show some likeness of attachment caused by inquisitiveness, but this is very flickering. Means the stage that he attains or the ecstasy that he might attain in association of pure devotees by hearing and chanting along with them, it may manifest the symptoms of bhava, but it's flickering, it's temporary. It will be there for some time, but as soon as he comes out of the association of devotees, then that bhava will also disappear from his heart. So this bhava which he experiences is not on the same level as that which is experienced by the pure devotee of the Lord. Okay. And if by the manifestation of such shadow attachment one feels the disappearance of all material pangs, then it is called para attachment. Such a shadow attachment or para attachment can develop if one associates with a pure devotee or visits holy places like Vrindavan or Mathura. And if an ordinary man develops such attachment for Krishna and fortunately performs devotional activities in the association of pure devotees, he can also rise to the platform of pure devotional service. So he has to take up that process. Not that he came in association of pure devotees, that ecstasy manifested, and then after it is done, he also leaves the process of devotional service. Devotees go in their way, he goes in his own way. No, that will not enable him to make any progress. Okay. So he has to associate continuously with the pure devotee or visit holy places and perform devotional service there in association of pure devotees again, and then gradually he can rise to the platform of pure devotional service. The conclusion is that transcendental attachment is so powerful that if such attachment is seen manifested even in some common man by the association of pure devotee, it can bring one to the perfectional stage. So bhava bhas can become bhava. So the ecstasy which that person experienced in association with pure devotees, which is mentioned as flickering, it is called as bhava abhas. So it's a resemblance. It resembles actual bhava, but it is actually not. Okay, it resembles. The symptoms are there, but it's not continuous. It's not permanent. We discussed yesterday that when bhava or symptom sattvika bhava appears in the mind of a devotee, then bhava itself becomes the mind. Our mind itself becomes the bhava. The nature of bhava is manifest within the mind and it continues in that and progresses to prema. But those who are not following the regulative principles and those who are not under the guidance of spiritual master, if bhava appears within them in association of pure devotees when they're hearing and chanting, say for example during Rath Yatra or during one of the festivals, and there is that manifestation of symptoms, but that should be considered as bhava bhas only. It is not bhava. And actual bhava will appear only when he continues associating with these pure devotees and performs devotional service either along with them or along with them is under their guidance and in the holy places like Vrindavan and Mathura. And one thing we also should know is we have been discussing about this Radhakund Babajis and other Babajis around this Govardhan area. So one might think that this is recommending that, okay, I do not have, I am materially attached, but I'll associate with these Babajis and come to that level of bhava with them. But the problem is that these Babajis themselves are in a bhava bhas stage. They are not the pure devotees. So by associating with them, one will not come to bhava stage, one will only remain in that bhava stage or basically become a materialist. We will see that. I think the next section, Srila Prabhupada writes that if in the bhava stage one associates with not associated with pure devotees, then gradually he'll come down to the platform of ahangaropasana or monism, where he thinks that he's the same as the Lord. Okay, Srila Prabhupada continues. But such attachment for Krishna cannot be invoked in a person without his being sufficiently blessed by the association of pure devotees, right? As attachment can be invoked by the association of pure devotees, so attachment can also be extinguished by offenses committed at the lotus feet of pure devotees. To be more clear, by the association of pure devotees, attachment for Krishna can be aroused. But if one commits offenses at the lotus feet of a devotee, one's shadow attachment or para attachment can be extinguished. So bhavabhas is extinguished. This extinguishing is like the waning of the full moon, which gradually decreases and at last becomes dark. One should therefore be very careful while associating with pure devotees to guard against committing an offense at their lotus feet. Transcendental attachment, either shadow or para, can be nullified by different degrees of offenses at the lotus feet of pure devotees. And this is not only the stage of bhavabhas, but Srila Rupa Goswami writes that it should be stated, by an offense against the dearest devotee of the Lord, even real bhava will be destroyed if the offense is grave. If it's serious offense, even real bhava will be destroyed. If the offense is medium, the bhava will turn into bhavabhas. If the offense is slight, the bhava will become an inferior type, okay, of a lower type. So bhavabhas will be destroyed, bhava can also be destroyed. If the offense is very serious, then one's attachment will become almost nil. See, one falls down from the level of bhava. And if the offense is not very serious, one's attachment can become second class or third class. If someone becomes attached to the principles of salvation or to merging into the existence of Brahmajyoti, his ecstasies gradually diminish into shadow and para attachment or else transform into the principles of ahangaropasana. So, if one who has attained to the stage of bhava, he does not continue associating with pure devotees, or he, because of his slight impurity within his heart, he cultivates other desires of material enjoyment, material attachment, or salvation, then his ecstasies gradually diminish into the stage of bhavabhas. And those who are into the shadow or para attachment, then it comes to ahangaropasana. This ahangaropasana describes a living entity when he begins spiritual realization by identifying with himself with the Supreme Lord. This state of self-realization is technically known as monism. Now, it might be what to say, surprising to us, or it might be I think surprising is a good word. I'm not getting a proper word. Fascinating to us that one on the stage of bhava, how can he come down to the stage of monism, okay, which he has already rejected? Correct, but still, no, Prabhupada mentions it, Rupa Goswami mentions it, so it seems that it is possible on the state of bhava also, and probably by association of Mayavadis, it might be possible. So that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Mayavadi Bhashya Sule Hoi Sarvanash. Even if you come to the level of bhava, and if you hear the enchanting or captivating instructions or captivating speech from Mayavadis, you can come down from the stage of bhava as well. Seems very fascinating, but it seems it's possible. The monist thinks himself one with the Supreme Lord. Just because he does not differentiate between himself and the Supreme Lord, it is his view that by worshipping himself, he is worshipping the Supreme Whole. Sometimes it is found that a neophyte is taking part in chanting and dancing very enthusiastically, but within himself he is under the impression that he has become one with the Supreme Whole. This concept of monism is completely different from pure transcendental devotional service. And one can even manifest the symptoms of bhava, thinking that because he has become one with the Lord, therefore he is experiencing that Brahmananda. And Brahmananda is manifested in my body like this. So that is not the point. If, however, it is seen that a person has developed a high standard of devotion without having undergone even the regulative principles, it is to be understood that his status of devotional service was achieved in a former life, because devotional service continues from previous life also. But what has happened? Why could he not perfect his devotional service in his previous life? Because of offense. For some reason or another, it has been temporarily stopped, most probably by an offense committed at the lotus feet of a devotee. Now, with a good second chance, it has again begun to develop. The conclusion is that steady progress in devotional service can be attained only in association of pure devotees. Okay. If one can gradually advance his status in devotional service, this is understood to be the causeless mercy of Krishna himself. If a person is completely detached from material enjoyment and has developed pure ecstatic devotion, even if he is sometimes accidentally found not living up to the standard of devotional service, one should not be envious of him. So this is apparent fault in this Bhava Bhaktas. So if a person is completely detached from material enjoyment and has developed pure ecstatic devotion, accidentally, if sometimes is found not living up to the standard of devotional service, one should not be envious of him. It is confirmed down in Bhagavad Gita that a devotee who has unflinching faith in and devotion to the Lord, even if sometimes found to be accidentally deviating from pure devotional characteristics, should still be counted among the pure. Unflinching faith in devotional service in Lord Krishna and in the spiritual master makes one highly elevated in the activities of devotional service. Yasya deva parabhaktir yatha deva tatha guru tasya katita hyarda prakashante mahatmanaha. So unflinching faith in devotional service in Krishna and spiritual master makes one highly elevated in the activities of devotional service. So this is the bottom line. Okay, so one should have faith in the limbs of devotional service. So faith in Krishna, faith in the spiritual master is fine, but one should also have faith in the limbs of devotional service that by performing these activities in devotional service, it will make me progress in devotional service. Okay, so all the activities of or the angas or the limbs of devotional service that we perform, we should have faith in that as well, that it lead me to that goal. It should not be done mechanically, like a ritual. In the Narsimha Purana, it is stated, if a person has completely engaged his mind, body, and activities in the service of the Supreme Godhead, but externally he is found to be engaged in some abominable activities, these abominable activities will surely be very quickly vanquished by the influence of his staunch devotional force. The example is given that on the full moon, there are some spots which may appear to be poke marks. Still, the illumination spread by the full moon cannot be checked. Similarly, a little fault in the midst of volumes of devotional service is not at all to be counted as a fault, because Krishna himself does not count it as a fault. Attachment for Krishna is transcendental bliss. Amid unlimited volumes of transcendental bliss, a spot of some material defect cannot act in any way. Okay, so this ends the discussion on Bhava Bhakti. Now, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he comments, there are 5 distinct elements in rasa. It's in experiencing the rasa, the taste of devotional service. There are 5 distinct elements: Sthai Bhava, Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika Bhava, and Sanchari or Vyabhichari Bhava. Sthai Bhava is the root of rasa, which means it's a particular attachment that a devotee has for the Lord. And we discuss this, it can be either Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, or Madhurya. Attachment to Krishna, that is called as Sthai Bhava. Vibhava is the cause of rasa. So how it works is, just to give you a brief introduction so that we can continue reading from 20th chapter onwards. Sthai Bhava, these things of these 5 elements of Bhava are explained in the southern division, which means from chapter 20 onwards. So Sthai Bhava is the actual attachment or rati that a person has for the Lord, which can be in one of these 5. Now, the experience of rasa or taste or relishing that relationship happens when it comes in contact or when these 4 are in place, which means Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika Bhava, and Sanchari Bhava or Vyabhichari Bhava. So when these 4 come in contact with the attachment, with the rati that a devotee has for Krishna, then it invokes ecstatic symptoms in the devotee. Okay, so Vibhava is the cause of rasa. So then again, there are divisions within Vibhava also. There is Alambra and there is one more. So what is the cause of bhava? What is the cause of rasa? One is Krishna himself. Krishna, knowledge of Krishna itself is the cause of rasa. And Udipan means when Krishna's form is there, Krishna when he plays flute, then these becomes the cause of rasa. It becomes a cause of enjoying that transcendental bliss. Correct? So that is Vibhava. And then Satvika Bhava, or rather Vibhava leads to Anubhava. Say for example, when Krishna is playing flute, that one may have this desire to dance. Okay, so the ecstatic symptom of dancing and other such symptoms are manifest in the personality of the devotee. These things are called as Anubhava. And we discussed some of these Anubhavas when we were discussing Bhava Bhakti, the 9 Anubhavas of Bhava Bhakti. So these are the things which he does when he has Bhava manifest within his heart. So that's called as Anubhava. Satvika Bhava are involuntary or not voluntary, but involuntary ecstasies which are manifest within the body. Means one has no control over it. So this is Ashta Satvika Vikar. So Vibhava becomes the cause, and the other three, uh, Anubhava, Satvika Bhava, and Vyabhichari Bhava, they become the effects of Bhava. And all these four put together enable a devotee to relish the taste in his Sthai Bhava, either Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, or Madhurya. Okay, so this explanation or elaboration comes the later parts of Nectar of Devotion. So we can read. So Vibhava is the cause of rasa, Anubhava is the effect of rasa, Satvika Bhavas are special effects, and Sanchari Bhavas are assistants to rasa. Vibhava, Anubhava, Satvika Bhava, and Vyabhichari Bhava bring the Sthai Bhava to the state of relishability and thus give it the status of rasa. So attachment to the Lord is there. And then on that particular attachment, there is relishing of taste also in different interactions with the Lord. Okay, so a simple example which is given is that of a mother's affection to a child. Okay, so the mother has affection to the child. Now that's Rati. But then when she sees the child, when she sees the activities of the child, or when she sees any paraphernalia associated with the child, like his clothes and other things, that it invokes emotion within the mother, right? So this is what is classified into Anubhava, Satvika Bhava, Vyabhichari Bhava, like this. So this relationship is set, that is Thai Bhava, of that of a mother and a child. But then there are causes of ecstasy, causes of relationshibility for the mother with respect to the child. So that is, these causes are called as Vibhava, and the other effects which manifest in the mother, these are categorized into Anubhava, Satvika Bhava, and Vyabhichari Bhava. Okay. So the last wave is Prema Bhakti, devotional service in pure love of God. The divisions are, we define, Sri Rupa Goswami defines Prema Bhakti, and then he defines what is the cause of Prema Bhakti. It can arise either from Bhava or from Krishna's mercy directly. One who is not qualified for Prema, Krishna being completely independent, he can bestow mercy onto that person and he can come to the highest stage of Prema. So from Bhava, it can come from Vaidhi Bhava, which arises from Vaidhi Sadhana. If you remember, we discussed that Bhava Bhakti can arise from Vaidhi Sadhana and Raganuga Sadhana. So when it arises from Vaidhi Sadhana, it is called as Vaidhi Bhava. And Prema, which comes from Vaidhi Bhava, that is also, it's a category of Prema Bhakti. Then it can come from Raganugiya Bhava, which arises from Raganuga Sadhana. From Krishna's mercy, it basically has two types. So when Krishna bestows his mercy, he bestows his mercy in two ways. One is Mahatmya Jnana Yukta, which means one gets to know or one comes to the stage of Prema with an understanding of the Lord's Mahatmya or his glories, his opulences. So this primarily happens for Vaidha Bhaktas. And Kevala means Krishna's mercy is such that the devotee or the person, he has no knowledge about the Lord's Mahatmya, about his glories as him being the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has knowledge of only his sweetness. Prema Bhakti on the level of sweetness. So this is for Raganuga Bhaktas. And then different stages that leads to Prema. So after giving all these different classifications for Bhava and Prema, Srila Rupa Goswami, he gives the general description of how one can come to the stage of prema. And we have been discussing that, these 9 stages of devotion service. Right. So, prema, Srila Prabhupada writes, when one's desire to love Krishna in one's particular relationship becomes intensified, this is known as pure love of Godhead. So when bhava becomes more intense or condensed, just like milk, when the milk is boiled more and more, it becomes condensed. So in this, then the stage of bhava, it becomes more and more condensed. It is called as prema. Okay. In the beginning, a devotee is engaged in the regulative principles of devotional service by the order of his spiritual master. When one thereby becomes completely purified of all material contamination, they develop an attachment and taste for devotional service. This taste and attachment, when gradually intensified in the course of time, becomes love. So this is these 3 stages. A regulative principle of devotional service is sadhana bhakti. Then develops an attachment and taste for devotional service is the stage of when one starts experiencing bhava. And when this taste and attachment gradually intensifies, then in the course of time it becomes love or prema. So this sadhana, bhava and prema. The word love can be actually applied only in relationship with the personality of Godhead. In the material world, love is not applicable at all. What goes on under the name of love in the material world is nothing but lust. There is gulf of difference between love and lust, like the difference between gold and iron. So this is the lecture that Srila Prabhupada gave in Seattle, October 18, 1968. Jayagopal, the devotee, asks, what is the difference between bhava and prema? And Srila Prabhupada explains, prema is mature condition of bhava, just like a ripe mango and green mango. Green mango is the cause of ripe mango, but to taste ripe mango is better than unripe mango. Similarly, before attaining love of Godhead, you have got different stages. Just like the same mango, it passes through different stages. Then one day it comes nice, yellow color, fully ripened, and taste is so nice. The same mango. The mango does not change, but it comes to the mature stage. So, as this example, the mango is the beginning. Mango is in the beginning a flower, then gradually a little fruit, then gradually it grows, then it becomes very tight, green, and then gradually it becomes little yellowish and becomes fully ripe. This is the process of everything. In material world also, there are 6 processes, and the last process is vanquish. This mango example or any other material example, we can accept it. So far, the growth is required, concerned. But material example is not perfect. Just like mango, when it is ripe, somebody eats, that's all right. Otherwise, it will overripe, it will decompose, it will fall down and finish. That is material. But spiritual is not like that. It is not finished. If you once come to the stage of mature stage of love, then that perfection stage continues eternally and your life is successful. Prema Pumartho Mahan. So Shrijiva Goswami, he comments, the main quality is Sandaratma, condensed bliss. Remember, when we're discussing the characteristics of pure devotional service, we spoke about Kleshagni, Shubhada, Mokshalagudakrit, Sudurlabha, Sandarananda Visheshatma, Shri Krishna Akarshani, Chasa. Okay, this is the verse. And the first two, Kleshagni and Shubhada, was applicable to Sadhana Bhakti. Mokshalagudakrit and Sudurlabha was applicable to Bhava Bhakti. Correct? And when we were discussing Bhava Bhakti, remember, Prabhupada specifically writes, Rati is very rare to attain. Remember, we discussed that in Bhava Bhakti yesterday. So, to come to the stage of Bhava Bhakti is extremely rare. So, therefore, it's Sudurlabha. And when one comes to the stage of Prema, then it's Sandrananta Visheshatma, which means it softens the heart, it's condensed bliss. And Sri Krishna Akarshani. So, on the stage of Prema, one attracts Krishna completely. So the main quality is Sandaratma, condensed bliss. Secondary is it produces softness in the heart and it produces extreme possessiveness of the Lord. Bhava becomes prema without giving up its previous state because of Achintya Shakti present in Rati, Prema, Sneha, Raga, Mana, Pranaya, Anurag and Mahabhav, which are supreme transformations of Hladini Shakti. So what's the understanding? The understanding is that when one comes to the stage of prema, he does not give up his ecstatic emotions. Bhava is still there. Sthai bhava is still there. Relationship with Lord, the rati is still there. Attachment to Krishna is still there. And vibhava, anubhavas, and satvika bhava, vichari bhava are all applicable on the stage of prema as well. Okay, but then it's more intensified. Although all these bhavas, all these ecstatic symptoms appear on the stage of bhav, but they continue in their more intensified stage on the level of prema. Okay, so it's not we are leaving bhava and going to prema. It just intensified. That's why it's called as condensed bliss. When milk is boiled, then it's the same milk, even if when it's condensed, but then it's more relishable. So this is the understanding. In the Narada Pancharatra, it is clearly stated that when lust is completely transferred to the Supreme Godhead and the concept of kinship is completely reposed in him, such is accepted as pure love of God by great authorities like Bhishma, Prahlad, Uddhava, and Narada. So this is the verse. Ananya mamata Vishnu, mamata prema sangata, bhaktir ityuchyate Bhishma, Prahladodhava, Naradaihi. If you see previous verse also, it speaks about mamata. Okay, and mamata is basically the feeling of possessiveness. Okay, a feeling of possessiveness of something, or in more broader term, as Srila Prabhupada writes, it is the concept of kinship, that I belong to Krishna and Krishna completely belongs to me. Okay, so this state of highest transcendental position of I being completely Krishna's and Krishna being completely mine, the state of possessiveness is achieved at the stage of prema. Okay, so that is what Srila Prabhupada is writing here. The concept of kinship is completely reposed in him, and this relationship is not affected by possessiveness of any other kind. So one does not feel possessiveness about his family, about his community, about his nation, about his wife, children, parents, like this. He is connected to Krishna. Krishna belongs to him, he belongs to Krishna. That is his possessiveness. And that is accepted as pure love of God by great authorities like Bhishma, Prahlad, Uddhava, and Narada. Great authorities like Bhishma have explained that love of Godhead means completely giving up all so-called love for any other person. According to Bhishma, love means reposing one's affection completely upon one person, withdrawing all affinities for any other person. Okay. This pure love can be transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead under two conditions: out of ecstasy and out of causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. So it can come from bhava gradually. From bhava, we come to the stage of prema, or it can directly come from the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Then from bhava, it's mentioned ecstasy. Ecstatic love of Godhead can be potently invoked simply by following the rules and regulations of devotional service as they are prescribed in scriptures under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. Correct? The angas were defined in relation to sadhana bhakti, but the same activities continue in bhava and prema, though they are called anubhavas after sadhana is finished. Right? The same angas, they also, or not all of them, but most of them, they continue on the stage of bhava and prema as well. Or in fact, all of the angas can be continued. At the stage of raganuga bhakti, when we were discussing, then the raganuga bhakta, he gives up some angas of bhakti and then he takes up those which is specific to his meditation. Okay. And on the stage of bhava and prema also, he gives up some aspects. Depends on the mood of the devotee. Okay, on the which stage of bhava is he? Is he on the stage of Vaidhi bhava or Raganuga bhava? Because if he's on the stage of Raganuga bhava, then he will give up the worship of Lakshmi Narayana, for example, because he's aspiring for going to Goloka Vrindavan. So he will give up the lower mode of worship, although it's an anga of bhakti. Because when we're discussing about Krishna Anushilanam, Krishna means Krishna and his expansions also. Correct? So at the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, we have to worship or we have to do devotional service to expansions of Krishna as well, and that is accepted as Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. But when one progresses to the stage of Raganuga Sadhana or Bhava or Prema, then his focus becomes concentrated on a specific form of the Lord. Okay, so then inadvertently he has to give up some angas of bhakti. So that happens. So that is understood. But the same activities which is specific to his particular mood of devotion, either in Raganuga Sadhana, Bhava Bhakti or Prema Bhakti, those angas he continues to follow, which are the same which he followed in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti as well. Okay. Then this is Vaidhi Bhakti or Vaidhi Bhava. Prema arising from Vaidhi Bhava is explained. Srila Prabhupada writes, In the 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 40 of Srimad Bhagavatam, this ecstatic love born of the execution of regulative devotional service is explained. A devotee in the course of executing the regulative principles of devotional service develops his natural Krishna consciousness, and being thus softened at heart, he chants and dances like a madman. While performing chanting of the holy name, he sometimes cries, sometimes talks wildly, sometimes sings, and sometimes, without caring for any outsider, dances like a madman. So, Vaidhi sadhana can mature to Vaidhi bhava and then to prema. Shri Jiva Goswami comments, Vaidaha means produced from Vaidhi. By following the rules of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi bhava appears. From that Vaidhi bhava appears the corresponding prema. That is the meaning of Vaidhi bhavottaha. Correct? It's Vaidhi bhavottaha. That prema which appears from Vaidhi bhakti. Evam vrataha, performing vows, indicate that prema arose from Vaidhi bhava. The word priya indicates the attainment of bhava. Swa indicates the devotee's possessiveness of the Lord. The Lord has become one's own object of affection. That is what is meant by possessiveness. Jatanuraga indicates extreme possessiveness. Okay, it's basically an explanation of this particular verse. Then, Raganugya Bhavottho, which means prema that arises from bhava based on Raganuga sadhana. In the Padma Purana, there's a statement about ecstatic love born of spontaneous affection. Chandrakanti, a celebrated fair-faced girl, rigidly observed celibacy in order to obtain Krishna as her husband. She always engaged herself in meditating on the transcendental form of the Lord and always chanted the glories of the Lord. So she performed Raganuga sadhana. She did not desire to accept anyone else as her husband. She had firmly decided that only Lord Krishna would be her husband. And with that Raganuga sadhana, she attained love for Krishna. So these are two examples. Sri Rupa Goswami did not elaborate on all these details, okay, because elaboration of bhava and prema will come in the subsequent divisions. So at this point of time, he's just giving a very brief introduction. And our realization of this or our understanding of these topics also is dependent on our realization. Some of these things would make some sense to us, and some of these things we will not be able to comprehend or how it is so. Why are these divisions given like this? Like that, but it depends on our realization. Based on realization, we'll be able to understand. But what we're discussing here is that this is what Srila Rupa Goswami presents to us, and this is how Srila Prabhupada introduced this subject to us, and we just are trying to understand at our level. Then, prema, which arises from the Lord's extraordinary mercy. When a devotee is found to be always associated with the Lord in ecstatic love, it is to be understood that such a position has been avoided by the Lord Himself out of His causeless, extraordinary mercy. An example of such extraordinary mercy is given in the 11th canto, 12th chapter, verse 7 of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Krishna tells Uddhava, the gopis in Vrindavan did not study the Vedas to achieve me, nor had they ever been in holy places of pilgrimage, nor did they devoutly execute any regulative principle, nor did they undergo any kind of austerity. It is simply by my association that they have attained the highest perfection of devotional service. From the example of Chandrakanti as found in Padma Purana and from the example of the gopis as found in Srimad Bhagavatam, it appears that a devotee who always thinks of Krishna and who always chants his glories in ecstatic love, regardless of his condition, will attain the highest perfection of unalloyed devotional love due to Lord Krishna's extraordinary mercy. Okay, so their attainment of prema is only by concentration on Krishna, not by following all the rules and regulations of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti like this. This is confirmed in Narad Pancharatra. If a person worships, adores, and loves Hari, the Supreme Lord, he should be understood to have finished all kinds of austerities, penances, and similar processes for self-realization. On the other hand, if after undergoing all types of austerities, penances, and mystic yoga practices, one does not develop such love for Hari, then all his performances are to be considered a useless waste of time. If someone always sees Krishna inside and out, then it is to be understood that he has surpassed all austerities and penances for self-realization. And if, after executing all kinds of penances and austerities, one cannot always see Krishna inside and out, then he has executed his performances uselessly. Okay, so it's a famous verse actually. This mercy of the Lord is bestowed in two ways. When one understands the Mahatmya Jnana Yuktas, spontaneous attraction to Krishna, which is said to be due to the extraordinary mercy of the Lord, can be placed under two headings. One is profound veneration for the greatness of the Lord, which is Mahatmya Jnana Yuktas, and one has love for Krishna because of his greatness. This is achieved by the causeless mercy of the Lord. The other is one's being automatically attracted to Krishna without any extraneous consideration. So one is attracted to Krishna without even knowing that his glories, that he is the creator of all the universes, he is the embodiment of all rasas, like this. They are just attracted to Krishna, just love Krishna. That's all. So this knowledge, which is endowed only the knowledge of the Lord's, or sorry, the prema that is endowed with only knowledge of the Lord's sweetness is called as kevala. Okay, it's single-pointed affection for Krishna. There is no consideration of any glories of the Lord. So Mahatmya Jnana Yuktas is explained in Narad Pancharatra. It is said that if on account of profound veneration for the greatness of the Supreme Lord, one attains a great affection and steady love for him, one is certainly assured of attaining the 4 kinds of Vaishnava liberation. Because Mahatmya, it's the glories of the Lord is included in his love. So therefore, he achieves these 4 kinds of Vaishnava liberation. Achieving the same bodily features as the Lord, achieving the same opulence as the Lord, dwelling on the planet where the Lord is residing, and attaining eternal association with the Lord. The Vaishnava liberation is completely different from the Mayavad liberation, which is simply a matter of being merged into the effulgence of the Lord. So Shri Vishwanath Thakur comments, 2 verses, this and the next one, from Pancharatra, now show prema with knowledge of Lord's powers and without knowledge of the Lord's powers. Mahatmya Jnanam, knowledge of the Lord's powers, means awareness that he is God. This awareness, with particular respect for the Lord, restricts feelings of Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhura. Though there is also awareness of the Lord's powers in persons practicing Raganuga Bhakti, that awareness does not restrict their feelings of Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhura Bhakti. This knowledge of the Lord's greatness and complete affection for the Lord is called Bhakti. By that type of Bhakti, the person attains Sarshti and other blessings, achieves liberation. Okay. Then Bhanu Maharaj comments in this regard. For both Vaidhi Bhaktas and Raganuga Bhaktas, Sambandha Gyan, which includes knowledge of the difference between God and Jiva and their respective qualities, is a prerequisite for proper sadhana. So on the stage of sadhana bhakti, one must know, one must have this Sambandha Gyan, even if he's performing Raganuga sadhana bhakti. In Raganuga bhakti, however, this knowledge does not restrict their feelings of intimacy with the Lord, and awareness of Krishna as God is not part of his emotional cultivation. Okay, so one who is on the stage of Raganuga sadhana, the greatness of the Lord or Krishna as God does not restrict his reciprocation with the Lord or his feelings of intimacy that he is cultivating. This is Kevala, which means only with the knowledge of the sweetness of the Lord. In the Narada Pancharatra, pure unalloyed devotional service is explained as being without any motive for personal benefit. If a devotee is continuously in love with Lord Krishna and his mind is always fixed upon him, that devotional attitude will prove to be the only means of attracting the attention of the Lord. In other words, a Vaishnava who is incessantly thinking of the form of Lord Krishna is to be known as a pure Vaishnava. Okay, so this he speaks with respect to prema. I'll just read this translation. That bhakti inundated with prema, with continuous spontaneous desires to please the Lord, free of desires for other results. Even the desire to see his powers brings even Vishnu under control. It brings Krishna under control. So this is the stage of Krishna Akarshini. Remember Sandrananda Visheshatma, Shri Krishna Akarshini, the last point of characteristics of pure devotional service. So one who's continuously, incessantly thinking of the form of Krishna, which means he's only attracted to the sweetness of Krishna in his form, is to be known as pure Vaishnava. We also discussed this when we discussed that as Smeram Bhangi, Tare Parichitam, Sahanchi Vistirna Drishti. When we see Lord Govinda on the banks of Yamuna in moonlight in his 3-bodied form playing flute, you don't see him that way if you are attached to material opulences. Because if you see him like this, then you lose complete attachment to anything material. So the form of the Lord, it's a personification of sweetness. And all the so-called sweetness that one may think he would want to experience in the material world, all that becomes distasteful to him. So this is what it is. One who instantly thinks of the form of Lord Krishna like this and he's known to be a pure Vaishnava. That's the definition. Generally, a devotee who has achieved the causeless mercy of the Lord on account of following the strict rules and regulations of devotional service becomes attracted by the supreme greatness of the Lord. Correct? This is Vaidhi Bhakti. By the transcendental beauty of the Lord and by the spontaneous execution of devotional service, which refers to Raganuga. To be more clear, by executing the regulated principles of devotional service, one can fully appreciate the transcendental beauty of the Lord. So means Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti can lead to Prema Bhakti. Vaidhi Sadhana can lead to Raganuga Sadhana and then from then on to Bhava and Prema. So Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti can ultimately lead one to Goloka Vrindavan as well. These are the intermediate stages. From Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, one becomes qualified to perform Raganuga Sadhana and then he goes on to Bhava and Prema. In any case, such exalted positions are possible only by the extraordinary mercy of the Lord upon the devotee. Right? So, just to recap, when we are discussing causes of prema, from bhava, from Vaidhi bhava, prema can arise. From Raganuga bhava also, prema can arise. And it can arise directly from Krishna's mercy, which includes Mahatmya Jnana Yukta and Kevala. But the point is, to come to the stage of prema, all these Vaidhi bhava, Raga, those who are in Vaidhi bhava, Raganuga bhava, but those who has got Lord's mercy, as Mahatma Jnana Yukta Kevala, they all need the mercy of the Lord. Okay, so even those who are practicing Vaidhi bhava or who are on the level of Vaidhi bhava, to come to the level of prema, it is possible only by the causeless mercy of the Lord. Those who are performing Raganuga bhava also, not performing from those who attain to the stage of Raganuga bhava, they can come to the stage of prema by the causeless mercy of the Lord. So the mercy of the Lord is like the umbrella for coming to the stage of prema for all these different stages. This is what Srila Prabhupada writes here. Correct? So such exalted position as possible only by the extraordinary mercy of the Lord upon the devotee. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, if a person practicing Raganuga sadhana performs archana, which includes meditation on Rukmini and others of Dwaraka, which are part of Vaidhi Bhakti, then the Lord will not bestow Kevala Prema. Okay, he'll bestow this Mahatmya Jnana Yukta Prema, but he will not bestow Kevala Prema. Means only the sweetness of the Lord, because this Anga of devotional service is still being performed, which comes under the category of Vaidhi Bhakti. Okay, so this is also one of the reasons that when we perform Vaidhi Bhakti, at the stage of Vaidhi Bhakti, it seems very static in the sense that we are performing a regulated devotional service. But when one advances, then it becomes dynamic. It depends on his mood, it depends on his desires, and how much purification he has, what is his eternal constitutional position. And then he is guided through all this on different angas that he should perform, different things that he should give up, like giving up meditation on Rukmini and others on Dwaraka. So all these things should be guided by the spiritual master. Okay, so he has to guide the devotee so that he attains his constitutional position. So the conclusion is association with pure devotees. Srila Prabhupada gives this as the subtitle. And this is the verse. Ado Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sangha Atha Bhajana Kriya Tato Nartha Nivritti Syat Tato Nishtha Ruchis Tatha Atha Saktis Tato Bhavas Tatha Premat Bhijanjati Sadhakaram Ayam Premna Pradurbhave Bhavet Kramaha. So, in order, these things happen. All the many different processes for developing love of Godhead have been explained so far. Sri Rupa Goswami now gives us a general description of how one can best achieve such a high position. The beginning of ecstatic love of Godhead is basically faith. There are many societies and associations of pure devotees, and if someone with just a little faith begins to associate with such societies, his advancement to pure devotional service is rapid. The influence of a pure devotee is such that if someone comes to associate with him with a little faith, one gets the chance of hearing about the Lord from authoritative scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus, by the mercy of the Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart, one gradually develops his faith in the descriptions of such authoritative scriptures. This is the first stage of association with pure devotees. In the second stage, so Ado Shraddha, that includes association with pure devotees, because Shraddha develops only in association of pure devotees. In the second stage, after one becomes a little advanced and mature, he automatically offers to follow the principles of devotional service under the guidance of the pure devotee and accepts him as the spiritual master. So this is the stage of Sadhu Sangha. In the next stage, under the guidance of the spiritual master, the devotee executes regulated devotional service. That is bhajana kriya. As a result of such activities, he becomes freed from all unwanted occupations, anartha. When he is freed from unwanted occupations, his faith becomes steadily fixed, nishtha. He develops a transcendental taste for devotional service, ruchi, then attachment, asakti, then ecstasies, bhava, and in the last stage, there is pure love of Godhead, which is prema. These are the different stages of the development of pure love. Only the most fortunate persons can achieve such success in life. Those who are simply academic students of the Vedic scriptures cannot appreciate how such a development takes place. In the Narada Pancharatra, Lord Shiva therefore tells Parvati, "My dear Supreme Goddess, you may know from me that any person who has developed the ecstasy of love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who is always merged in the transcendental bliss on account of this love cannot even perceive the material distress or happiness coming from the body or mind because he is completely absorbed in the highest bliss. The affection and the dealings of love that are different branches of the original tree of love precede many varieties of affectionate manifestations that will not be discussed here. Okay, so there is a lot more to be discussed, but these will not be discussed here. So it's because sneha and other advanced stages are the manifestations of prema, but because they are rare, even in those who have practiced bhakti, the distinctions will not be described here. And Sri Rupa Goswami describes them in his another book, Ujjvala Nilamani. Okay, so there he elaborates on all these different things. But in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, this is it. The stages of prema are not described beyond this point. So he will describe about bhava. The southern division, as discussed, these 5 bhavas would be there. Then the western will discuss about the 5 mukhya bhava and 7 secondary bhavas. Means this Shanta Dasya Vatsya Shanta Dasya Sakhya Vatsalya and Madhurya will be described in Western Ocean, Western Division, and Northern Division will speak about the rest 7, the secondary rasas, and that's it. Okay, about the higher levels of prema are not described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He has a different book for it. These different manifestations have been described by Sanatana Goswami in his Bhagavatamrita. Although the subject of such affections and dealings of love is very confidential, Sanatana Goswami has described them very explicitly. This is Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Sri Rupa Goswami thus concludes the first division of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, offering up his treatise for the transcendental pleasure of Sanatana Goswami, who has established the transcendental beauty, and of Gopala Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, and Raghunath Dasa Goswami. It appears from this statement that the great Sri Jiva Goswami was not yet active when Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu was written. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta summary of the first division of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, up to the descriptions of ecstatic love of Godhead, which are to follow next. Okay, so we end our discussion of on Eastern Division here. Right. Okay, so we'll stop. Do you have any questions of what all we have discussed today, or generally on the whole discussion in the last 3 weeks? We can take that up now. The exam will be tomorrow in the evening, 3:30 onwards, like your Bhagavad Gita exam. It will be, I think, 1.5 hours. And it will come only from these first 19 chapters. I have already told you that you have to concentrate on first 5, the last 5. And in between those sections where Srila Prabhupada gives his own commentaries on the angas of bhakti. Okay. And it will be good if you can memorize all 64 angas. That will be good. You should know. Okay. And yeah, and references you do not have to memorize. No shlokas, no references. I'll not ask you references to quote for different angas of bhakti. That's not possible. Okay, anything else? Yes, Prabhu. What's the question? I'm not able to hear, sorry. Sakya rasa, there are 5 rasas. Yes. Okay, these 5 rasas, like what's that? Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Are these rasas applicable in Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, or they are applicable only in Bhava and Prema Bhakti? That's the question. So, in Raganuga Sadhana, we are following in the footsteps of Ragatmika Bhaktas who possess these 5 relationships, or specifically these 4 relationships: Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. So in Raganuga Sadhana, one is not aware or that his rati or his attachment, his relationship with Krishna is not yet manifest. He has the desire, the greed to achieve, to come to that level, but the relationship is not yet completely, or not complete, but relationship is not yet established. Okay. So Raganuga Sadhana is following the footsteps of those devotees who already have these relationships with Krishna. But in Raganuga Sadhana, one has not realized those relationships with Krishna. Okay, but he's following the footsteps of a specific devotee who has this relationship with Krishna. So because Raganuga Sadhana is also Sadhana Bhakti only. On the level of Bhava and Prema, then these things are revealed. So Bhava is a very high stage. Raganuga Sadhana is also a very high stage, but it is lower to the stage of Bhava. Okay. Any other question? Fine. So we'll stop. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai.